Workshop number 2. We started
I
with
know.
that. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. We're starting with budget workshop number 2. Thank you.
All right, let's go.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to budget workshop number 2. Yay, I know. I like your enthusiasm for budgeting. See, budgeting is an enjoyable experience.
Being this discouraged.
Who would?
All right, so as we move into our first slides, let's just review again, if we could, the agenda and the timeline for what we're going to accomplish. We'll be recapping some of what we presented at the first budget workshop, and we'll present the additional information based on the feedback that we've received over the last couple of weeks. If we could go to there's our budget timeline. As you know, we will have first reading on the budget. If we could go to the next slide, thank you. On May 12th. We could go on May 12th. Will be first reading and public hearing of our budget, and then hopefully adoption on May 19th. As a reminder to council, our meetings are back to back in May due to the Memorial Day holiday. So if you go to the next slide, please. So we're going to go through some of the highlights from the budget that you will find in your budget document based on your 5 priorities. We have added, if we go to the next slide, obviously with police, we are increasing our staffing as we need to help ensure the safety of our roadways and our neighborhoods. Additionally, competitive pay is fundamental to attracting qualified candidates and retaining experienced officers. So we are prioritizing that in the budget. And we also want to ensure that their equipment is up to standards and that they have the tools that are necessary for them to do their job safely and effectively, which includes adding them their new patrol shields. So we're very excited about some of the things that we are doing for our police department in the budget, and you will see exactly how much that equals in terms of millions of dollars later in the budget. Right, Chief Thompson? That's right. Yes, yes. Next slide, please. For Greenville Fire, we have also allocated funds to add more personnel to the department, including a recruit training officer who will help ensure recruit safety and readiness and help establish the culture and expectations of the department. We are working to make sure that we have clear and reliable communication, which is the backbone of our emergency response, and that our radio upgrades will help improve coordination, enhance safety, and ensure seamless communication in critical moments when seconds count. And we have seen that quite a bit lately. Also, the design for the new fire station is complete. And as you all know, we are finalizing the plans for constructions. One thing I'd also like to mention is that we have our new downtown ambassador program. The selected contractor will provide a team of ambassadors responsible for hospitality services, wayfinding assistance, homeless liaison resources, park safety and maintenance services to ensure a welcoming and vibrant environment. And the deadline for that is this Thursday, May 1st. So we will have additional information on that as part of the state of the city on May 12th. Next slide, please. Our Public Works Department, this is new since your first budget. We did want to include that. It was really important to me that I include that under public safety because our Public Works are advocating to be included under first responders throughout the country. So we want to make sure that we're recognizing them the way that we see them, which is public safety and first responders. So first we have our radio upgrades where we're upgrading our Public Works radio systems with new software, which will bring the department's communications infrastructure in line with modern standards before the 2027 support deadline. So we want to make sure we meet our deadline, thereby enhancing our reliability during our critical incidents and day-to-day operations. We are working on upgrading our restrooms, also including renovating Falls Park and Peace Center restrooms, which will modernize and standardize the city's public restroom facilities across the community. I will say that our restrooms tend to be subject to quite a bit of vandalism, and nothing makes me more unpleasant on a Saturday morning than to receive text messages from Dave and his team about vandalism that has occurred in some of our restrooms. And so our improvements that we are working on are designed to deter vandalism and reduce maintenance needs, which will also enhance the experience for city residents and visitors. So we have a new design that we're working on with our public restrooms to help and keep them from being subject to vandalism, make them easier to clean when we do experience that.
Are there set hours in the restroom?
In certain areas there are, yes, and they vary from restroom to restroom. Also, for solid waste compactors, we're purchasing and installing compactors at the Rutherford Road and Stone Avenue drop-off recycling centers, which will significantly reduce transportation costs and minimize our haul frequency to the city's recycling vendor. Additional benefits include lower vehicle maintenance costs, improved operational efficiency, and better staff oversight, as the sites will be staffed by our city employees for set hours per week. Ultimately, this investment will directly reduce recycling operating expenses while improving service delivery to our city residents. And we are trying to make sure that wherever we have the opportunity to improve efficiency, we do so, and this is an opportunity for us to do that. We are also purchasing an air curtain burner, which will significantly reduce the city's annual yard waste disposal cost, currently $234,000, by approximately $161,000 annually, with a return on investment within 16 months. In addition to the cost savings, the burner supports Public Works environmental goals by converting waste into reusable ash and operating within EPA air quality guidelines. This investment enhances Public Works operational efficiency while promoting sustainable practices and solid waste management. And not included on the slide, but please don't forget that we also have the River Place Fountain repair, which restoring the River Place Fountain, which has been non-operational for over a year. We've had to repair that multiple times over the years, and we're going to do a complete overhaul of the fountain and hopefully reduce any further repairs for the future. Thank you. Next slide. So we're moving on to mobility and transportation. While the first slide is the same that you'll see up here, same as what you saw in your first presentation, we have added a second slide that calls out some transit specific items. So you saw all of this about what we're doing with our ITS, our traffic management center, maintaining and enhancing our street lighting, improving intersections to reduce congestion. Of course, we're adding $500,000 to the budget for traffic calming measures in neighborhoods because that seems to be something that we constantly are asking for. We've been increasing that budget every year in executing the pedestrian safety action plan, which you can see around you if you look at some of the new paintings and markings on our city streets. Next slide, please. Okay. In terms of GTA, we are leveraging our traffic management center to improve on-time performance. We are ensuring that our transit vehicles remain in good repair through planned replacements and maintenance, which y'all heard from James earlier this year when he gave his GTA update. We want to advance safety with driver behavior monitoring and modification tools. And of course, we're maintaining our level of service, including Saturday hours and 30-minute frequency on 4 key routes. So we appreciate all the work that we can do with James.
Is that dependent on the county participation at that level?
No, this
is all based on city, but
on their budget.
obviously if the county were
They're
to cut,
maintaining these services, yes.
obviously if the county were to cut budget towards GTA, it would have a significant impact on what we're able to do with GTA.
When do we know their numbers? How does that go with our cycle?
They're in budget cycle right now too, and they have to adopt their budget by the end of June.
Are they having?
And they have a 2-year.
Any, we see.
They're certainly getting the message about the 30-minute service issue. So
Yeah.
they're hearing it, so I'm hoping that.
All right, moving on to recreation, open spaces, and sustainability. We are continuing our efforts to preserve and expand our tree canopy, both in our public spaces and on private property. Additionally, as we near the completion of 2 destinations at Unity Park, it is important to ensure that there is adequate staffing to continue providing a high level of service to our park visitors. So we're adding staffing to support some of the things that we have going on at Unity Park. We are getting ready to launch our study to determine the best route for the extension of the Swamp Rabbit Trail Orange Line to serve and connect the North Main neighborhood. The Wheel Park and Pump Track is one of the most exciting projects we have coming up and will increase the diversity of recreation facilities and amenities offered by the city. We have hired the lead design firm, and this summer we will be focusing on gathering public input. We will focus on the design and the engineering work and preparing cost estimates. We are also piloting a project at this year's Greenville Jazz Fest to implement ticketless payments. If you don't know, Greenville Jazz Fest is May 30th and 31st. So please come out and join us. I'm not allowed to say if it's my favorite, but I really like it. If it's successful and well received by the public, we will look at implementing it at Fall for Greenville. And of course, the goats have not only been one of our most popular initiatives, but extremely effective. We've goatscaped over 10 acres of invasives from Cleveland Park, Sliding Rock, Gatlin Park, Hesse Mora Park, and other city-owned parcels along Lake Hampton. So the goats are very, very popular. In fact, one time last year, we thought we lost, we knew we hadn't lost one, but someone from the public didn't see one and thought we had lost one, but all was well with the goats. All right, next on to the neighborhoods and affordable housings. Okay, I want to make sure to make a reference about when you see the budget on, and you see different items, it's hard to really quantify the amount of money if you just look straight line item of the budget with the cities putting in affordable housing. Obviously, you see the $2.5 million in the CIP, you see $500,000 to affordable housing and homeless initiatives, but there are land purchases that are in the budget. There's our community development department that's in the budget. We have our affordable ATAX money that is in the budget, and ATAX state and local
For work.
that are all part of that. And so if you start to add those numbers up, we are over $10 million in this year's budget alone towards affordable housing. And so I say that because if you look at just one line item, it's really hard to know that the amount of investment the city is making towards affordable housing. And so I would just direct everyone to look at the individual line items and where it's called out in the various budgets so that you can see how it's quantified. So to repeat that, land purchases are in there twice, and you'll be able to see where that is. And those are not called out specific locations right now because those are under negotiation and protected as real estate transaction. You will see it called out in the CIP. You'll see it called out as part of state and local ATAX. Okay. All right. We are also, as I've talked about, we talked about all of these, but I want to make sure that we also mention that we are working with our partners at the United Way on a new initiative called Greenville Together, which brings the government, nonprofit, business, and faith-based organizations together. And so right now, that is the intention for the money that's set aside in the budget for homeless services. We have two new areas that we'll be focusing our attention on as we continue our efforts to protect and preserve neighborhoods that abut commercial areas. Our next small area plans will be for West Greenville and Pleasant Bird Drive. And we employ those same strategies that have been so effective in the other areas that we've studied. So that is our plan for this year, is to really focus on West Greenville. We promised West Greenville we would do a small area plan back in 2021. And also, again, Pleasant Bird Drive is a commercial corridor, but it is bounded by numerous residential neighborhoods. And we want to put some focus there this year.
What part of Pleasant Grove?
The entire corridor, we'll be studying the entire corridor. Next slide.
On either
please.
side of Lawrence Road? North of Lawrence Road?
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to study the entire corridor. All right. On to economic development. One thing that we didn't mention last time that was highlighted during your retreat is the use of technology. Technology plays a critical role in business recruitment and economic development today, and access to cutting-edge technology will enable GCEDC to be more competitive and increase efficiency in planning and data-driven analysis. It's been just under 2 years since the creation of the Greenville City Economic Development Corporation, which is charged with implementing the city's economic development strategic plan. Sam has been with us officially 1 year as of last week. In addition to leveraging public funds with private, his anniversary was April 22nd. In addition to leveraging public funds with private capital to recruit businesses and projects to the city, the GCEDC is also committed to advancing small businesses, which helps diversify our economy. As part of that effort, the new grant program will provide city dollars to match funds that our Community Development Division receives from HUD to support our small businesses. And we are also setting aside funding that allows us flexibility to respond to future opportunities for high impact projects. And that one is really important as we move into the next year. We want to be nimble in our decision making and be able to respond quickly. We can go to the next slide, please. So as a reminder, we are the only South Carolina entity that has received a triple AAA from the 3 major rating agencies. And that allows us to do a lot of the things that you all are going to see and hear about today and in the budget. So I always like to take that chance to remind you that we are in great financial state and condition. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so now we're going to get into the numbers. Go into general fund. Millage rate remains unchanged at 81.4 mils. Our business license tax rate remain flat, so there's no significant changes there. We are planning for a merit and cost of living adjustment for all of our city employees. We just approved under first reading last time, a general fund debt issuance for up to $10 million for the Stone Avenue Fire Station replacement. And we are trying to utilize available funds anywhere we can possible through our interest earnings and our redistribution of project balances. And so I really want to commend Patricia, Christina, and their entire team for helping us do that so that we can better utilize our funds and that we don't have projects sitting unused. We can go to the next. So if we could move so we might need, there we go. So obviously, as we move through general fund, we are projected at the end of this year to have available fund balance of $7,679,000 that we'll be able to also add once we take out our 20%. We can go to the next slide. And we can come back to
I think
these at
every
the end of the
time
presentation if you have
You move
questions.
yeah, sorry.
All right, here's our general fund balance. We are projected to use a surplus of fund balance of about $4 million. And I will explain that to you later about how that compares to how you're trending over the past few years as we get you closer to a zero-based budget. That is my goal over time. And we are getting closer to that goal every year. If we want to go, none of those numbers have changed, by the way, since your first presentation. So I just want to remind everybody of that. Here's our capital improvement program. And let me be real careful to say that this is what these project amounts had in them that have been spent over the years. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's every dollar that was spent on a project. So for example, we've spent over $20 million on the Swamp Rabbit Trail in the last 5 years. So when you look at those columns, that doesn't necessarily mean that the only amount of money that we've spent on affordable housing was $8,500,000. What that shows you is out of that project account, that is what has been added
That was what was appropriated through the budget process
That's right.
for those fiscal years.
for that specific project
Mhm,
account.
correct.
So I want to make sure that we're being very clear on that, about what those numbers actually represent so that we don't have that question later on.
And that there's a lot of active projects that are still ongoing.
Right.
That
we're gonna
aren't
go through
necessarily
that.
shown
We're going to go through that. So let's keep moving. We can ask questions at the end. Again, here are some additional items that are funded for this year. For example, we have an available balance in our fire station improvements account of $2.6 million. So that's, for example, why that wasn't added to capital this year. So also, we want to look at those available balances and where we have opportunity to spend those funds down before we just appropriate additional dollars. I am happy to say that we're appropriating additional funds for open space acquisition as we do try to continue to build that account up so that we can respond to opportunities for land purchases when they become available. Next slide, please. Traffic calming is one where we really increased the amount of money that we're allocating this year because we do get a significant amount of requests for traffic calming from our neighborhoods. And we want to be able to respond to those requests throughout the year. So that is if you'll notice, that is an enhancement from last year. But that is an area that we probably get a lot of contact from our residents about wanting to do traffic calming. So that's the largest that I'm aware of that we put into traffic calming in terms of a line item budget in quite a while. Also, you'll notice we have our parcels up there that we're talking about for purchase, which equal over $3 million. And that is obviously to go for affordable housing. That roadway bridge maintenance is work that we hope are bridges that were damaged mostly during Helene, that we hope that we will receive that money back from FEMA. But if not, we want to make those roadway bridges still have to be repaired regardless. However, I'm happy to report that we did get our first FEMA reimbursement check today from FEMA following Helene to the tune of about $3.7 million, which was very exciting for us. So great work to the entire team that made that happen.
Say that again.
$3.7 million of
they
FEMA
pay
reimbursement. No,
Happy
no.
to get paid.
Yeah, I really want to thank my entire team for that because a lot of people worked to make that happen and for us to get the reimbursement. So at this, it's been, about right up 6 months, I think is really a testament to the work that our team put into it to ensure that we did everything we needed to do along the way to ensure that we got that FEMA reimbursement and that none of the expenses were questioned. So thank you very much. Okay, next slide. Again, just some additional capital improvements. You'll see that we're continuing to really focus on pedestrian safety, and then what do we need to do with technology to improve our community safety. If you've been to our traffic management center, I think you know that that was a significant technology enhancement that has been well received, and it's amazing what it's been able to do for us. Most recently with Church Street Bridge, which I will take an opportunity to brag on during formal meeting tonight. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So here are how our sources of funds are allocated throughout our CIP. This is just to give you a quick glimpse of how we actually are being able to pay for a lot of our CIP projects, our capital improvement program projects. We can go to the next slide. We're going to run through some of these funds real quick, and then I'll turn over the special funds to Patricia. But if we could, obviously, we continue to see growth in both our hospitality and accommodations tax. So we're very fortunate in that. While we did have a slight dip in October, following Helene, things have really started to rebound, and we feel like we're going to finish the year strong. And the beginning of this year thus far, if the rest of the calendar year of 25 is any indication, is the first 4 months of our year. I'm trying to talk calendar and fiscal, but our calendar year performance has been really strong since January. Visit Greenville was able to provide us some great information about bookings and how they're looking for 25 and beyond. And it's very strong, even though people have been worried about a dip with a possible recession. We're not seeing that. And we're very fortunate. I think our current unemployment rate came in at 4.1%. So continuing to perform very strong here in the city of Greenville. Okay, if we could go to the next slide to kind of talk about some of the fun things. I always feel like the hospitality tax fund is where all of the really fun projects are. Obviously, the airport loop trail was a result out of our small area plan for our airport that we completed a couple of years ago. If you'll remember, that was the brainchild of one of our staff planners, Austin Rutherford. And so looking forward to being able to start banking money towards the airport loop trail. That airport loop trail is estimated to cost probably around $8 million. So this is what we're trying to get it at least started. And that will be many years in the making, but obviously it's an exciting project for us. We need to finish paying the Church Street Bridge and aesthetics enhancements. Remember, a lot of that is lighting, which increases the safety of Church Street Bridge. Obviously, we're adding another $1 million to greenways and trails. This is another one where earlier I mentioned, when you see 4.75 million, it doesn't look, it sounds fine, but it's not nearly what we've actually spent. When you look at all the bridges that we've built, we've spent over $20 million the last 5 years. The bridges alone between Haywood, Lawrence, and Verde, over $8 million of city investment. Obviously, adding money through public safety cameras and infrastructure, that's to improve our public safety downtown. And we've talked about that. We have our Swan Private Trail bridges. We're banking $500,000 for our orange line so that we can get that design started. We'd like to be able to move forward with that. Really want to push our friends at the county to get there as quick as we want to get there. So that's a project that we're going to work hard on. Obviously, the Verde SRT overpass, we're not funding anything this year because that project is fully funded. And the bids are due May 9th at 2 p.m. So we'll know exactly what they come in at. I'm hoping that we might see some savings from that we have in our balance that we're able to reallocate to somewhere else. And obviously the wheel park, I think that we've put in $1.5 million for that this year and we've got a little over 1.2 million. We feel that hopefully with our city funds and with what's already available, that our community will help us with the fundraising that they had offered to help us with when this project was first discussed. And we look forward to being able to get this project underway and get it completed as soon as possible. Next slide. Now we're moving into our local accommodations tax, and nothing on this has changed since the first presentation that you all saw. Obviously, we want to make sure that we're funding things that we normally fund, which includes BGSC, which is statutory, and of course, $200,000 for Jazz Fest. We can go to the next slide. Here are a few other things that we wanted to highlight. Obviously, we give for field maintenance money every year so that we can continue to work on that with our partners at the Rainbow Drive. You can see the River Place Fountain that I mentioned earlier, $1 million in capital expenditures for the Greenville Convention Center, Arts and Public Places, $150,000. We just started funding that several years ago to this tune, or they had gotten a little money, but not to this level. So we're continuing to invest in our public art. And obviously, over $1 million will be going towards workforce housing. We can go to the next slide. And then here is for your state aid tax calendar. And I wanted to make sure that we're showing this because the money that you approve in the budget is all that you're statutorily required to approve as part of the budget. There is a separate resolution and discussion of the actual aid tax awards. So when you authorize the budget or approve the budget, you are not approving the individual applications. There will be a separate resolution that will be brought to you for consideration. And so I just want to make sure that that's very clear. Here's our proposed timeline right now. I received their recommendations on Friday. The completed recommendations, I will be reviewing those. They will be making a recommendation to your next work session to City Council. And then I will depend, just depending on the response that we receive back and the feedback we receive from council, we will have that resolution on either the May 19th or the June 9th meeting for your consideration. Okay, moving on. All right, and as you can see, here's how we are looking with our state accommodations tax fund. Obviously, we are having a workforce housing, which is going to will be 15% after statutory contributions. And we're projecting that number at around $400,000, but we'll just have to see where we come out with that. But that's about where we're going to end up. If we can go to the next slide. There you go, $484,000 this year. And we add that to the funds that we already have, that'll be close to $1 million of additional funds that we can use on affordable housing. Remember, we were not able to use this money until we passed our housing impact analysis, which we were passed earlier at the beginning of this calendar year, if you'll recall. You cannot use that money if you don't meet the statutory requirements. And us passing the housing impact study was a requirement in order to meet the statutory, the state requirement. I think we were only the 5th city in the state of South Carolina to approve that.
But we did set it aside in last year.
We did set it aside. That's right. That's why you see the
Okay,
available
the
balance.
375, gotcha, sorry.
Yes, that's okay. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to now turn it over to Patricia for enterprise funds. If you will, we'll get her all the way through her presentation and then we'll come back to the end and be ready to take all your questions and open it up for discussion.
All right, thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Patricia.
So Shannon likes to take all of the fun
The park is fun.
and then leave me with, okay, parking.
Parking is.
So overall, just to remind everybody, enterprise funds operate similar to a business. They should be self-sufficient where revenues meet their expenses. So the parking fund remains healthy. This year, it generates enough revenue to cover all of its operations and maintenance, approximately 5.76 million, as well as debt service. And even transfers roughly $1 million to the general fund to offset some of the general city services. And major investments are planned to keep our parking facilities in good condition, 1.25 million for annual garage repairs and maintenance. And of course, I think it's been mentioned a couple times here, the 900,000 for the River Place fountain. So that's a transfer coming from the local accommodations tax fund to the parking fund because it will be managed under the parking fund. On wastewater, wastewater we're projecting a 3.1% fee increase based on the February 2025 CPI, Consumer Price Index. So we're using that to can generate a really modest increase overall. The fund covers approximately 3.1 million in operations. We have 3 million for capital improvements budgeted. Those capital dollars are going to repairing and rehabilitating aging wastewater collection systems and reduce infill and infiltration. We're also setting aside funds for equipment replacements or vehicle replacements at about 400,000. Okay. The zoo fund. The zoo fund supports the operations of our city zoo. We don't have any fee increases, included in the FY26 budget. The fund is supported by zoo admissions, concessions, and support from the city. Covers roughly 5.7 million in operating costs to care for animals, staff the zoo, and provide a great visitor experience. We are also setting aside 400,000 for capital improvements within the zoo as initial funding for the zoo's restrooms. I feel like I skipped over stormwater somehow. I was wondering where it went. So stormwater also receiving a modest 3.1% fee increase. Again, that's based on February 2025 CPI. It's a small adjustment. It will provide an additional 203,000 of revenue needed to maintain and improve our drainage infrastructure. The fund supports 4.5 million in stormwater operations. Think of like ditch maintenance and pipe cleaning, flood mitigation. We're also investing an additional $1 million for drainage repairs and improvements. Additionally, 550,000 in vehicle replacements to help our crews keep our system operating efficiently. Special revenue funds, solid waste. We are proposing a $3 increase to the monthly solid waste fee. This adjustment is needed to keep up with the rising service costs. Importantly, this adjustment also helps to lessen the solid waste fund's reliance on the general fund and hopefully, long-term support its financial sustainability. The solid waste fund will support about 7.8 million in operations. That covers, weekly trash, recycling, yard waste pickup for our residents. Additionally, there's about 1 million in vehicle replacements, as well as the curtain burner that was discussed earlier that which will significantly reduce the city's annual yard waste disposal costs and has a return on investment of 16 months. These investments will improve service reliability and reduce maintenance costs on old trucks. Even though with the fee increase, our solid waste fee remains comparable to our peer cities, and it ensures that we continue providing dependable service. Utility undergrounding, I think Mayor asked me to include this. This is just really a snapshot of what the overall fund looks like. This fund is supported as we take really 20% of the Duke franchise fee revenue, and we utilize that. We transfer that over to the utility undergrounding fund, and then Duke also has a portion that they will match with us for undergrounding projects. So the estimated Duke balance at the end of the year is 2 million, and we are awaiting construction bids for East Stone Avenue and Augusta Street overhead crossings. And then Augusta Street, Peachy to Melville is in the design process. I should also add that looking at different funding options as far as, potentially debt structuring in order to maybe accomplish, a more significant, or make a bigger dent, for lack of a better term, in the overall undergrounding plans, but haven't been able to get too far on that
Appreciate
yet.
looking at that. I think that'd be something to be very interested in.
For the next
If we
year.
could give, I mean, to make it.
I mean, there are some challenges, you know,
Proposals we saw that
Right.
came in there with about $20 million. So unless we can get close to 20 million, not sure it's worth it, but if we can, then that would be a good way to look at it.
But that ought to be a focus following this budget season, really then.
Yeah, let's find out if we get some money, we can do something with it.
Finally, general fund revenue overview. Here's a year over year revenue comparison. As you can see, property taxes, licenses and permits continue to be our largest revenue sources by far. Projected FY '26 general revenues total 146.4 million. Again, with property taxes and licenses and permits comprising a combined 85% of our revenue base. From a positive perspective, those are typically stable and predictable funding sources. Oh, yes, thank you. And then our FY '26 budget by category, you'll see that police comprises approximately 27%, which is followed by fire at 15%. So public safety, the total expenditure budget is around 150 million. And so for public safety, just in police and fire alone is over 40%. And then you add in public works, as a first responder for another 12% or, 54%. So, again, 150 is the total amount. And that is, here's a breakdown by percentage of all the various departments or components of the general fund operating budget. So, included in there are transfers out as well as debt service, capital needs, everything that's going to come out of the general fund over the upcoming year. Just here's a look at our fiscal year trend data and the fund balance appropriated. And really just the key takeaway here is that continually trying to drive that fund balance appropriation down. So again, just to recap, 150 million annual operating budget for the general fund. There are approximately 42 households within the city of Greenville. So that's around $298 per household per month. And you get all the city services that come with that. So that's police and fire protection, street maintenance, economic development, and so much more. So pretty good value. Here's I'm following you. Here's just a quick look at our projected FY '26 staffing levels. This is just for the general fund. Just as a reminder, we have staffing is housed in multiple funds. I'll share with you the enterprise funds as well. And sometimes, as in the case of engineering department, a position might be shared, like it's half in the engineering department, and then the other half lives in the utility undergrounding fund. And here's just a look at the enterprise fund. Additionally, positions are budgeted within our internal service funds as well as our special revenue funds. And just as a reminder, here are the funds that were not presented as part of the budget workshops, typically because they are just in and out, like the service funds, or aren't material enough to devote to the time to. Again, millage remains unchanged at 81.4 mills. Business licenses and tax rates remain flat. The cost of living, adjustment is included, and then the utilization of available funds next steps, really just want to hear feedback. Modifications needed, changes, things you'd like to see in preparation or prior to the public hearing and first reading on May 12th. And then provided that everything goes well, second and final reading on May 19th.
Thank you, Patricia. We can go to the next slide. All right. Thank you very much. Councilmember Brazington.
What's driving the stronger than usual property tax revenue projection?
The anticipated assessment valuation.
No reassessment.
Is that consistent with 5 years ago?
Mhm.
Or like, looked like the prior year was maybe 3 or 4%. That's what, 12 to 14% on the side?
Mhm. That's based out of the feedback that we're getting from the county as far as where assessed values are going to be, just values.
And as always, that's conservative. Notwithstanding the big double-digit projection, you still on the conservative side?
I'm still on the conservative side.
Thank you. Councilmember DeWarke.
Yeah, I have a number of questions,
Sure.
or, sorry, I don't have a number of questions, I have a number of comments.
Yes, sir.
So the first one, I want to start with, the $2.5 million for affordable housing. I'm supportive, been supportive, all good. I do get concerned, and I'm not looking for answers, I'm just looking to make some comments. I do get concerned, when we talk about construction, when we talk about capital improvement project line items that we have, that this year we're pulling back some because we're being prudent. I'm not suggesting we pull back in affordable housing. I am suggesting though, we have funded it at such a robust level for a number of years. I hope that money continues to be used for what its purposes are, and we're not getting backlogged like we are other. So I don't know.
No, I mean, a big chunks of money go towards the LIHTC projects.
Okay.
Right, that's our
$2.5
contribution
million
agreement,
goes to the Greenville
housing
Housing.
fund.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. I understand that. So that was just one thought. Really happy about the $500,000 for the homelessness. Thank you on the orange line. I think that's going to be a big deal to our, Dorothy, to our district, particularly in District 1 that does not have direct access to the Swamp Rabbit Trail. It's going to be a big deal for thousands and thousands of people. And then I'll always be a champion of neighborhoods. We've got a lot of stuff in here for neighborhoods, so really excited about that. And then also, a big champion for our economic development program, which, I always say really pays for itself, right? So we've got a lot of line items that are very needed. But I think we've got some opportunities also with economic development that whatever we can invest in there, whatever we're able to, I do believe that does pay for itself and lots of other things too. So that is it. So thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
John.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Dow.
I have a number of comments, questions, but not in any great order.
Okay.
House Street Garage, our new big beautiful garage. We took care of all that funding this year
Yes.
with our resolution. Okay, so it shouldn't show anywhere in here. Okay,
No.
good.
And just like the fire station, like the 10 million that's going for second reading tonight, like because it's happening as part of the year, you won't see it reflected.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I know it's a little bit.
Yeah, we're living it, but
Right.
we're living it in this current year. Okay. Homeless initiatives. So we were 550 line item last year, 550,000, 500,000 this year. But prior to that, because you started calling it out to quantify it, prior to that, we were still spending money to address the homeless issue. Just hard to quantify because it wasn't a line item on the CIP. I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking of, for example, our downtown police response, the homeless resource center. I remember us having a hand in that financially. I mean, there's been a number of years that we've put money towards the issue. Prior to this, it's just hard to quantify because this is the first time it's on the CIP. Is that a fair statement?
It's somewhat fair. You have put money towards it, but it was always in the police department budget. And it wasn't to the quantity that you are doing at this present time.
Okay.
So, I think the HRC and outreach have been funded at about $150,000 a year. And that's specifically in police department's budget to assist.
Well, the HRC is defunct now, is it
Right,
not?
that's right. So, and all we did was help fund the pilot on that. And pilot didn't go anywhere beyond that because they didn't get federal funding. We're actually calling out that initiative so that people know that that is what we are trying to spend towards trying to address the homeless situation in our community. And obviously with the creation of Greenville Together, the idea is that a majority of that money would go to support that initiative.
And I would, it's probably small, but I would make a case that every bit of your staff time, and Judge Hawley's staff time in homeless court, similar to how part of our contribution to Greenlink is staff time, right? Our staff
Administrative, yeah.
contribution, administrative time, that's quantifiable. I mean, that's time they're not spending doing the other things. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Okay.
TMC staffing, I asked you about this,
Mhm.
because it shows the CIP for small change, 100, 110. And that's because we're contracting it, staff?
That's right. It was part of our contract and what we did with the TMC was we always anticipated that the first couple of years we would contract that staffing as we began to get more comfortable with running the operation on our own. And probably next year that money will just be in operations.
So the guys that are staffing it right now, they aren't City of Greenville employees?
Dante is,
Dante.
but the other gentleman, Marcus
Marcus
is
is
not.
not, okay. I want to make a point. I know you made the affordable housing point because press is here and I want to make this point too. SRT bridges, Swamp Rabbit Trail bridges showed as a very small number on there in terms of previous money spent. But the bridges themselves, Lawrence Road, Haywood Road, were somewhere around 8 million, maybe closer to 10 in there. In other words, that line item in there is not reflective of what those two bridges already in place cost by any stretch of the
No,
imagination.
No, nowhere close.
Okay. Are we adding an engineer, the engineering staff?
No.
The GTA trolley match for the grant that we did not get, so it's $235,000. Shouldn't that come back? In other words, they're not gonna apply again, are they?
That's what we were actually talking about earlier. If it doesn't, it may come back. I'm looking at Christina.
Okay, it may
He's
come back.
hiding behind Chief Thompson.
I'm not optimistic. If it's not, what we're approving in this budget for ATAX grants, and you
Mhm.
touched on this. This approval will be applied for first quarter of next year, right?
No.
In other words, what we're about to adopt in May,
Mhm.
those recommendations were funded in the 24-25 budget.
No, those are the applications that were received in first quarter of this year.
Yeah, I know, but they're coming out of the current year's budget.
They're coming out of this year's budget.
It's July 1.
Oh,
It's a good issue because if we're talking before, it doesn't really line up with reality on the ground.
yeah.
No, so they
See
submit,
that?
It's because their budget schedules.
if we could go to the ATAX slide with the timeline on it, we can walk through this. So they apply in March,
Correct?
then they go through their review meetings, which have all been held, and they submit a recommendation to the city manager, which I received on Friday. Then we come to you all, but that is their money allocated that they would get after July 1 of
Okay.
this calendar year. But it's part of
So
next year's
it's,
budget.
yeah, day one, just think of it, day one of the new budget year.
Okay. Patricia, can we quantify this 3.1 CPI increase on stormwater fee, which would be on their property tax, wastewater bill would be on the REWA bill? We're talking about a $3 per month increase on solid waste. I'm trying to get a feel for what is a person going to feel
Okay.
on increased fees?
Sure.
And maybe not now, because that's a little bit putting you on the spot.
No, actually, I
Resident.
expected you to do that.
Hate to
Yeah,
see
mine-
predictable.
Patricia can look
While she's
it up.
looking for that, the last thing I'll say is in terms of special revenue funds, I don't think transit should be passed over so quickly. I know it's a complex funding cycle, but, and I'm not saying we do it this year, but in future budget years, GreenLink is such an integral part of what we focus on, talk about, as part of our transit mobility priority. I think there's a lot of mystery for no good reason, but on those funding streams, and I would recommend not tossing it in with victim witness and admissions tax. I see it as different, a little higher priority.
We can have James come in and present.
Maybe in a work session.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, what else?
That's it. Okay, did you get it?
So yes, stormwater, it ranges from $1.40 per year, $1.40 per year to $2.46
On your property tax?
on your property tax. Wastewater ranges from $2.16 per year to, based on your meter size as well as your consumption, to $591.72 per year if you have an 8-inch, like an industrial meter. That's a really big meter.
People, right?
I mean, that would be like, it would be big.
That's not your average residential.
It's not, it's not at your, I mean, it's an industrial size. I don't even know if we have any that size in the city of Greenville. And then the solid waste fee is $36 per year.
Right.
So,
Okay. So pretty negligible on the property tax increase line items.
That's right.
Okay,
I need to ask a question about.
That's all.
Solid waste.
yes, ma'am.
All right,
Solid waste, we had,
Councilmember Fleming.
on solid waste, we had, at one time, we had a special fee for, certain, communities or certain organizations, et cetera, to help some of them with the, I think it was a solid waste fee, it might be the stormwater fee, is one of them.
Is it the
It's special
educational,
program,
like where they can apply for it and get a portion of it back if it's education?
Yes. Mhm.
That's still available.
Okay, so it's got.
But it's I'm going off memories, but it's an application process, I want to say, and it's, if they meet certain criteria,
Right.
I want to say it's 20% off the fee.
Okay.
And I know education is educational component, or educational outreach is a big
Mhm.
portion of, obtaining that.
Okay, and utility underground, are we at a point where there are very few, streets that are located in District Two, that, are part of the utility underground, and, do we have any plans, can we find out if we have any plans, to include more of the, houses and, communities in District Two?
You know, I can go back and look. I know, Mayor had shared with me, I think, a presentation on various neighborhoods, but I
Right.
can't
Mhm.
remember exactly where they were. So if I could take that as a follow-up item and get back
Please
to you,
do.
Lily.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
We got some recommendations to do.
Right.
It's not, went back and looked at the same recommendations we had about 6 years ago. Each district has some, based on outage histories.
Right.
And some of them haven't changed. They still have persistent issues in certain areas. And with a big price tag on it.
Yes, it is. And a lot of them have a lot of trees in those particular neighborhoods as well.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councilmember Fleming?
Okay. Let's cost of living.
Cost of living, as far as the, adjustment, it's
Mhm.
5%.
Okay. Ooh. Okay.
Any other questions?
No, I think I answered it when I was reading something else. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Mayor?
Yeah, a couple of things on the transportation matter. I agree with Councilman Down about the GTA budget. I think it's a good one to keep it front and center, and it's not that complicated in terms of what we did with GreenLink. I've talked to Brandon about this and the manager, but I think our contribution for the trolley service may have run its course. I think we need trolleys, but I think it's time to rethink what we've done. Things have changed. We have Uber out there now. That's changed. A lot of people used to take our trolleys, just don't do that anymore. We still need one for baseball, for sure. But the trolleys that are still going down West End Village and other places are basically running empty most of the time. And, I think it's time to look at that money, 400,000 a year, 500,000, whatever it is, and see if there's a better way to spend that money, whether it's for trolleys or something else to let people need a way for transportation. And I think we need some kind of shuttle downtown. I think we need baseball, but beyond that, I think maybe we need to rethink that, but maybe the better use.
We also had, I think, a year ago, two of them were at end of life, the meeting, and that's why this grant came, but I'm not any more optimistic that a grant will come.
I've had people, yeah, I've let us, just in the last few months, the West End Neighborhood Association meeting came up and the West End Business Association meeting came up, two different places where they're basically pointing out, hey, those trolleys, the people just not working anymore. They're not on schedule, they're broken at the time, a lot of issues.
Hard to find drivers for.
Yeah, that issue too, so maybe we can rethink that, do something creative. We were creative at the time we did that, but then maybe they can kind of meet the new time we have out there and do something different. The fountain at River Place, I sure hate that the money's coming out of the parking fund. I mean.
Oh, it's not coming out of the parking fund, it's coming out of local accommodations tax.
Okay. well, thank
Somebody
you
in
for
River Park,
clarifying.
because it's on parking lot.
It's being managed out of the parking fund. Yes,
It's being managed through parking, so it's a pass.
Yeah.
it's a transfer, so you'll see it coming in their revenue.
That I wrote that down, so we'll have that.
And on the underground part, I'll be seeing you soon, I guess, to talk about the Odessa Road, that, but hopefully you reach from Katichi to Ferris Road is the point.
All right, other questions or comments?
Can I follow up just real quickly on the
Yes.
mayor? So, you brought up the River Place fountain. I just want to remind everyone that that this is obviously a big expense, but just as a reminder, when that was first created, it was created in mind of making sure that downtown was accessible and could be used by all people of all income levels. And someone who has children down there that play, I will tell you that is truly represented at that fountain, that it is in fact, I see a lot of people that probably won't be shopping at Lululemon and at some of the restaurants, but they do get to come down and they do get to enjoy downtown for those type of amenities such as that River Place fountain. So I am glad that it's a tough nut. I'm glad we are investing in it and not walking away from it.
And then one final thing kind of related to, on your restroom issues. There was a day we didn't have restrooms downtown. We got serious about it years ago and funded a number of them all at one time. The one that I was in question about it, the one behind the Peace Center, as we look at the issue, all these things ought to be looked at again. Like, is it working? Is it, we're using that well? I mean, I just don't know if that one gets the visitors, if you will.
It's important when you have something in that.
Well, that would be my question.
Yes.
Just know that maybe it doesn't need to be open all the time. Maybe you can go across the street with some good signage and in terms of the operation expense and everything else. But you're right, when you have the youth center has their events.
And with their expansion now, because they're adding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Well,
But even on a bad day, the vandalism settle on our downtown restrooms are second to none in the United States of America in terms of restrooms. But we have inner city visits. You never know what people are going to talk about. That's what they always talk about. They can't believe we have such clean restrooms in our downtown. And then we have them on our children.
wasn't there some participation of the developer with the River Place Mountain?
Oh, that's been long, long ago, and that fountain has been fixed numerous times. We're gonna fix it from top to bottom this time, and we're gonna do it
But
correctly.
it's completely ours. It's not.
Yes, it's completely ours. But this will be the one and only time I would hope to ever come and ask you to fix the fountain. At $900,000.
Yeah, we learned a lot with that helped with community park, know how to do the spray park the right way in terms of access to the machinery.
Whenever you're mixing water and electricity, there's always a lot of fun opportunities with that. So, but yes, okay. Other questions or comments? This is your chance. All right, hearing none. I think everybody's in good shape, so we'll take that. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We're ready to go to executive session.
We've got some great items like that.
Should go meeting.
We have a motion, please.
Yeah, but I got that.
Yeah, all the other.
I'm not sure. That's very good.
Items discussed this afternoon under SC Code
Oh,
3478, sections 1, 2, and 5. Personnel matter, this
Yes.
is boards and commissions.
Okay.
Again, agent instructed under subsections A1.
I'll get you guys later.
Legal advice, non-discrimination ordinance, legal advice regarding the ownership interest in former Key Street. update on potential claim regarding city property in southern side, briefing on new litigation, involving the city as a property owner, prospective acquisition of property at Green Acre and Fulton, and discussion matters related to the location or expansion of the business in the city.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah.
Aye.